Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back to Boxes and Bubbles, where today we're talking about Mazebook #1, published by Dark Horse.
Writing and art by Jeff Lemire, and letters by Steve Wands. Jeff Lemire is an absolute powerhouse who seems to somehow consistently churn out something new and interesting. His series Sweet Tooth recently got a Netflix adaptation, and he recently joined the wave of creators taking to Substack for new projects. His latest in-print comic is Mazebook, and though it's a heavy, sad story, which is usually not my kind of thing, I'm sensitive, alright? I had to talk about it, because it's not a book with some sad parts. The entire experience of reading this book is sad. The rocks in your stomach feeling of deep, dark sadness, of going through motions and somehow making it through days that just don't and can't and won't get better, bleeds from the pages. So much so that reading this, lying cozily in bed on a lovely Saturday morning, I could almost feel the weight of it pressing down on my chest. And that's what a good piece of art is for me. I have something of a reputation amongst friends for being hard to please when it comes to movies or TV. What makes me like a piece of media is if it makes me feel something. And that something can be anything. Revulsion, happiness, profundity, excitement, and in some cases, cut me to the core with sadness. The stronger the emotional reaction, the more likely I am to like the movie. And those few movies that deeply affect me are the ones that I just adore. Dancer in the Dark is an excellent movie with a soundtrack by Bjork, and I will never ever watch it again, ever. I loved it. Such an intense, raw, emotional experience. But it hurt me so bad, I just never want to see it again. The case is a bit different when it comes to sad music though. I think it should be illegal to play sad music in restaurants when people are trying to eat. Anyway, while this might be a touch too depressing for some, I was blown away to be made to feel this way by a comic. A medium that has given me countless other intense feelings, but never one quite like this. Before we open the book though, it would be helpful if you knew the story of Ariadne and Theseus from Greek myth. The story goes that the princess Ariadne of Crete, the daughter of Pasiphae and King Minos, had fallen in love with Theseus. You might recognize the name Minos because it relates to the Minotaur, the hybrid man-bull child which Pasiphae gave birth to, after the sea god Poseidon cursed her to fall in love with a bull that her husband, King Minos, was supposed to sacrifice to him. Pretty messed up to be mad at a guy and decide to curse his wife for it, but anyway, fall in love she did, and the resulting child was the Minotaur. Technically Ariadne's half-brother, I guess. The king allowed his wife to raise the baby, but eventually it could only get nourishment from eating human beings. King Minos was, understandably, distressed about this, so he sought advice from the oracle at Delphi, who told him to build a maze and imprison the Minotaur at the center. Why not just kill him? Or use a regular cage? It makes for a less interesting story, I suppose. So, Ariadne's half-brother is hanging out in the middle of a giant maze. His dad, or stepdad, or whatever you want to call him, sets up an elaborate deal with a neighboring king, in which 7 young men and women must be sent to the labyrinth every 9 or 7 years, or every year in some versions of the story. Either way, it sounds like a question from a math test, and I don't much care for it. This was supposed to avert a plague for some reason. I don't know, sounds like a trick to me. The 3rd time this sacrifice was due. I told you, it's a math question. This is where Theseus shows up. He volunteers to enter the labyrinth, kill the Minotaur, and therefore stop any more sacrifices being needed. Before he's thrown into the labyrinth, there's time for Ariadne to fall madly in love with him, and decide that she wants to help him survive the maze. She gives Theseus a ball of string, which he uses to mark his path as he navigates to the center. When he reaches the Minotaur and kills him, he follows the string back to the entrance and escapes. That's pretty much all you need to know. But while I was reading up on it, after this, Theseus escapes Crete with Ariadne and sails home. On the way, he just leaves her on a beach somewhere. Why is all that important? Well, this book is called Mazebook, and immediately as we begin reading, the man in the story tells us about a red sweater that someone used to wear. He spends a page recalling every detail of that sweater, which leads to a gut punch on the next page. He says, "Why can I remember every thread of that old sweater, but I can't remember her face clearly anymore?" What I also found so effective here is that the first page is in full color, and when we turn to this page, all that is gone. The world is grey. There is no color here. It gives the whole book an atmosphere that just works so perfectly with the text. As the man continues his thought, he says, "People everywhere, and not one of them means anything to me." I really felt this narration. He doesn't sound sorry for himself to me. It's almost as if he's detached from it all, and he's just stating facts with no real feeling attached. Of course, that's just what I drew from it. He goes about his day, going to work. He's a building code inspector, and there's a splash of the color red for his pen, which he uses to draw a route through a floor plan. Already, as you can see, the similarities are forming between this man and Theseus with his ball of string. I really like this shot of the office he's working in and how the cubicle walls are arranged in kind of a maze-like way. After dealing with some work stuff, he begins to tell us about a room that exists in his head. In it is his memory of the person wearing the red sweater. He tells us, "That's all that's left of her now. My little girl. Memories." So this man is still suffering from the loss of his daughter, and seemingly her mother is no longer in the picture either. His memories of her are all he has, and they're beginning to fade. It's been a long time since he lost her, and he thinks back on their time together. There's a wonderful page here, where those red threads of sweater are tying those memories to him, and the next panel shows them consuming his whole body. These memories really are all he has, and even those are now beginning to slip away with time. Ugh! See? Told you this was a sad story. He continues about his life, eating, showering and sleeping, waking for work the next day. He has a great monologue about routine and how it allows him to operate without thinking or feeling anything. He really does seem to be standing outside himself, trudging on with a life that seems to only be a meaningless, numb existence for him. Combining his hollow narration, the drab world he lives in, and our knowledge of the crushing loss he suffered, I was really feeling the empathy hard on this one. It felt stiflingly, cloyingly, achingly sad, and on top of that, I felt tired. Tired for him, for his years of this unending, meaningless trudge of days. That, as I mentioned before, coming from a comic book, is just an astonishing feat in my eyes. That night, he dreams of his daughter, Wendy, and that red string leads him right to her. And then, just for a flash, just for a brief second, she is replaced by a minotaur, which scares her dad awake. I won't give away what happens next, but it's really interesting and one of those endings that makes you go, okay, so what happens now? I'm really looking forward to more of this, though I'm pretty certain that things won't suddenly become sunshine and rainbows for this poor guy.
So a bit of a sad one this time, but I wanted to make a video about it and spread some love. Hopefully there's a nice ending to this story, or at least one that isn't completely tragic. Well, that's all for this one, but if you want to hear about some more books that I didn't have time to make videos for, follow me on Twitter at Boxes and Bubbles. Make sure to check out the rest of the channel for some other spoiler-free reviews. That's all for this time, but I'll see you there. Bye bye!